Good evening and welcome to the Dollar Dogs and Beer podcast. I am your host, Andrew, and joining me tonight, once again, we've got Joe back as Jason has a work project this week as the poor guy can't seem to get his Mondays straightened out this summer. So he said despite Labor Day next Monday, he should still be back since he's been taking a lot of Labor Days off leading into it. So he'll be working with us next Monday, theoretically. Joe, how you doing?
Hanging in there, man. Hanging in there. A big week for the Cubs coming up this week. So, you know, cautiously optimistic, but always dreadfully afraid, as you know me to be.
I wonder why. It's not like the Cubs ever did anything to you that would cause that. So, Joe, what are you drinking tonight?
I'm on the Evan Williams and Mountain Dew again, hoping that is good news for my boys and the the week ahead here.
Well, for me tonight, Joe, you and I are both Warwick grads. We always remembered starting school after Labor Day, which is when it should start. Well, no, it's been for a couple of years now. Warwick has been starting before Labor Day, and there are really no justifiable good reasons for this, considering there are no snow days anymore. First of all, we haven't had snow in like 3 years, but second of all, um, they send all the electronics home and they make it one of those FID days, flexible instruction days. So it's not like the kids get the day off anyway. So move it back after Labor Day, please, Warwick. You know, we had a great summer with the kids. It was just awesome the whole time. And I'm a little sour that it's ending. So it's a sour monkey kind of night for me.
Can't fault you there. I do not envy kids these days losing the snow days, man.
No, we're week-long blizzards. Those were the best.
Yeah,
I mean, we might not have gotten out till the middle of June, but it was still awesome to have a whole week off.
dang right it was.
All right, so moving into it tonight, we're going to start off with the Little League World Series, and it was a great one this year. California came from behind to beat Curacao 6-5, thanks to a walk-off home run from Luis Lapp. Lapp's home run came after California gave up a 4-run lead earlier in the game. You know, he flipped his bat, threw his arms up in the air as he trotted around the bases, leapt onto home plate as he was greeted by his teammates that were, surrounding the box, just waiting for him. After the game, he said, quote, "This is a unique feeling that maybe only 5 or less people experience in their lifetime." He actually finished the term with 5 home runs, which led all players. He said, "I feel great. It's hard to beat this feeling. I don't know what would make me feel happier." I mean, that's just freaking awesome. Curacao had actually tied the game up in the 5th inning when Nasir El Awasis hit a grand slam to center. He also had an RBI in the 3rd as well. I mean, that kid put the team on his back and did everything he could. For California, they also had RBI contributions from Jackson Kalish and Lucas Keldorf. They each had 2 RBIs apiece. So the California team this year, Joe, was from El Segundo. It was their first ever trip to the finals, and California, as a state, has now produced teams that have produced 8 titles. That leads all states in the Little League World Series. So, congratulations to California and El Segundo for what was a fantastic tournament and a great ending. Curacao, they've been really good in the international scene lately. They've represented the international side of the bracket in the championship game the last 3 times that the non-US teams have been allowed to compete. So 2019, 2022, and 23. Obviously, no tournament in 2020 because of COVID, and then 2021 it was just American teams because of the travel restrictions. So when the international teams have been there, it's been all Curacao, but they've lost each of the last 3 times. So they were so close this time. I mean, that was a heartbreaking loss for them. And, making it an even tougher run, both teams did have a loss during the tournaments. They both had to fight through the elimination brackets to get to the finals. And, Little League regulates pitch count pretty heavily. And both teams were, by the time the finals rolled around, they were using much less experienced starters because all the high leverage arms had been used up. Governor Shapiro was on hand for the game, and he was joined by a special guest. You probably remember her, Joe. 2014 Little League Baseball World Series pitching sensation Monet Davis. Next August, it's going to be her 10-year anniversary when she became the first female pitcher to win a tournament game. And she helped Philadelphia's Tanny Little League make it to the U.S. semifinals that year. I remember Monet Davis pitching. She was really, really good. That slider curve thing that she threw, along with a really good fastball, she was just great. And also, this was a little poignant. The Little League World Series, they honored the late great Stuart Scott. They enshrined him in the Little League Hall of Excellence before the tournament final. He is the 62nd person to be enshrined. He was recognized for his support of the Little League World Series while he was at ESPN, and that's something I distinctly remember as a kid watching the Little League World Series on TV. How excited Stuart Scott would get for every game. It didn't matter whether it was the U.S., international, that dude was so hyped up and excited, and he liked having the kids come up in the broadcast booth with him. I I mean, he was just a great broadcaster all the way around. One of my favorite of all time, but boy, there was just something special that came out during the Little League World Series with Stuart Scott.
Yeah, for sure. Really, a giant of a man. Really left a big hole for sportscasters for sure. Somebody that we obviously grew up listening to all the time. Um, you know, I miss him still. I think he was such a linchpin for ESPN and their
Yeah,
success.
ESPN has never been the same since he died.
No,
They've never found Scott Van Pelt's good. I do enjoy SVP, but I it's the quality of ESPN's broadcast since the death of Stuart Scott. Plus, they've also had a ton of layoffs because of cost cutting, and the quality is not what it once was for the worldwide of sports.
yeah,
So, Joe, what an ending to
yeah. I mean,
blow a 4-run lead and then walk it off.
yeah. I mean, that's excellent. It's really exciting stuff. You feel great for those kids from El Segundo, and you feel terrible for the Curacao kids for 3 times now in the last 4 or 5 years. Just
That
that close.
close.
Um, but it's what's really fun about it is just how much joy the kids have playing in the game. And when you do get to watch it, you're like, that's what this is supposed to be.
Exactly.
You know.
Yep, they're just in it for the joy of the game, and it's pure to watch. Jason's thoughts on all of this. Holy crap, that has to be one of the greatest endings of all time. We've seen walk-offs before, but Curacao with the game tying grand slam, all momentum their way, and then Lap hits a walk-off, his fifth of the Little League World Series against a team that didn't give up a homer all tournament. Good Lord, that's incredible. And he's absolutely right about that. I forgot to mention that. Wow, what a time to give up the first home run of the tournament. Yeah, you said it right. You feel great for the kids from California, and it's heart wrenching for the kids from Curacao. But I'm sure they'll be back again next year, and probably with just as good of a team. All right, Joseph. How about the Cubs? Interesting week.
Yeah. We were on last week, and I said the Cubs had to do at minimum take 2 of 3 from Detroit and take at least 3 or 4 from Pittsburgh. They did that. To me, 2 of 3 from Detroit is disappointing. They should have had that entire series. And you know, that series is strange a bit. They took game 1 7-6, lose game 2 8-6, and win game 3 6-4. The story in game 1, Madrigal had 2 RBI doubles, so really getting it done with his bat for the Cubs. Um, Javier Assad, 5 in the 3rd inning, 5 hits, 2 runs, really has cemented himself as a starter now. He got a few spot starts, and he's really cemented his role with Stroman out, getting in the rotation there. Um, Game 2 was hopefully the last Drew Smiley start for the year. Um, he started out really well, and he just has not been good for the last 2 months or so. 3 2/3 in game 2, 8 hits, 7 runs, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts, 2 home runs. Um, he's had some bullpen appearances in between starts here, and has looked pretty good in that role. So I'm getting a bit of a Zach Eflin vibe from him. as they go towards the playoffs. Coming in and being productive from the bullpen. So hopefully that's where he stays, and hopefully he's able to find his groove there and make a difference for the Cubs down the stretch. Game 3, all but one hit came in the 6th inning and off of Tyone. Carpenter for Detroit had a grand slam. Tyone went 5 2/3, 4 hits, 4 runs, 6 strikeouts. Gomes took the lead with an RBI single. So the Cubs did all the little things right. Tyone worked as hard as he could, did pretty good until about the 6th inning. And the bullpen did their job. So all in all, some positives out of that series. I do think that letting Smiley pitch too long, got in the way of a sweep here. They really certainly needed that. And then the Pirates series, game 1, 5-4 win in 10 innings. Ian Happ has a 2-run RBI single in the 10th inning. Steele goes 6 innings, 6 hits, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts. Continues to be their workhorse. And game 2 was Mitch Keller. So Mitch Keller went 8 innings, 6 strikeouts, 4 hits, no runs. Guy was excellent for them. Hendricks only gave up 2 runs, but when your offense isn't producing and Mitch Keller is dealing like he was, that's enough, unfortunately. Game 3 on Saturday would have been the next Drew Smiley start. The Cubs decided to promote Jordan Wicks, who has been tearing it up in AAA, and he made the start on Saturday. Gave up a leadoff homer to Cabrian Hayes, and after that settled in, went 5 innings, 2 hits, the 1 run we mentioned, and 9 strikeouts. Hell of a debut for the kid. You'll love to see it. A ton of offense from Seiya this week. Candelario had a huge week this week. And Cody Bellinger had a great week this week. More on that in a few minutes. But and then game 4, the 10-1 win on Sunday. So the biggest, run differential of the week, which, you're happy to see that going into the series with the Brewers tonight. Assad went 7 innings again, was excellent. Bellinger's line from Sunday. Actually, we'll talk about that in fantasy updates. We'll save that for that. Seiya in this game went 2 for 3, 2 doubles, 2 walks, an RBI, and 2 runs. And in the game on Saturday, Seiya went 2 for 5, a triple, a double, a walk, and a run. So had himself a heck of a weekend. So the Cubs did what they had to do. The Cubs, the last 2 weeks had a rather soft schedule. We talked about that a bit last week. They had the Sox, and the Tigers and the Pirates this week. And the Royals series was a bit of a disappointment. You went 8-4 in this stretch, which is pretty respectable, except for the fact that Milwaukee won 8 in a row and you lost ground over 2 weeks. You lost a half a game over 2 weeks because Milwaukee has just been lights out. So more on their success later. But yeah, it's really to have a stretch like this for 2 weeks and lose a half a game in the standings is just gut wrenching.
I mean, that's literally how Jason felt in June when the Phillies were obliterating baseball, except for the fact that Atlanta was obliterating baseball just better. I mean, you don't see that. You don't see things happen like that too often. It's just unbelievably frustrating when it does. I know. I remember that first episode in July when Jason was on and was just going, "You've got to be kidding me! You've just got to be." I think he muttered, "You've got to be kidding me," at least 8 or 9 times during that episode, if I remember right. Because that's going to happen. You play great ball, but the team ahead of you plays just a little bit better ball, and it's like, What the hell, man? That's baseball for you sometimes.
Yeah, so all in all, a good week. But again, the Brewers' success kind of mitigates the success of the week. So
It only tamps it down just a little bit. It could be worse. Could be a lot worse. All right, so let's roll it on, Joe. Oh God, is it fantasy time? I am so pissed off at fantasy baseball this past week. Thanks to bullshit stat corrections, we went from having everybody tied, which was just so cool and awesome, to me losing to Jason by 2, 13-11, and then Ron picks up what his second or third win of the year against you, 13-11, because of some bullshit stat corrections that I still have not been adequately explained to me by Yahoo. So anyway, that's what happened there. Jason, at this point, Joe, I think regular season, I think he's going to go wire to wire because I'm 12 and a half out now with only 2 weeks left. And Jason's got Ron twice. Or does he have
one more time, I think.
Yeah.
I've got him this week. So
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
I
I've
mean,
got Ron
look,
this week. No, I've got Ron this week because I just had Jason. You
yeah,
have Jason
I've got Jason this week is what I meant. So
put a beat down on him for me.
I'll see what I can do. I honestly, it's funny because like Friday, I think Ron was like, okay, it's already over. Like we don't have to keep doing this. And I'm like, there's a ton of these numbers that are within one or two of each other. I'm not counting anything.
The swing categories from this past week were just ridiculous. Like I think in both matchups, I think scores literally swung probably 8 to 10 points back and forth all week. It was nuts.
I can tell you two of the places that I know. I was the beneficiary of his offense as a fan yesterday. As a fantasy player, not so much. Um, Ron has Cody Bellinger, who went 3 for 5 yesterday, 2 doubles, 5 RBIs,
Jesus.
2 runs, and a stolen base. So RBIs and doubles went bye. And Ron took those categories and took the day, man.
It's crazy what one guy's high in any fan. It doesn't matter if it's fantasy baseball, fantasy football. It doesn't matter. It's when one guy just goes off like that. It's amazing how much it completely wrecks all of the hard work you put in that your other players put in that week. Just insane. I'm thinking when a running back is pushing the single game NFL rushing record and things like that.
I didn't have the best performance from pitchers this week either. That didn't really help.
And my pitchers actually showed up, but my offense was great early and then slowed down at the end. Anyway, whatever. That's fantasy. So, Joe, how about Shohei? This just blows my mind.
Yeah. Announced last week that Shohei will not pitch again this year. Shohei it was revealed, has a tear in his UCL and his pitching elbow. The team and Ohtani have not yet decided if he will have surgery. This would be the second time he has it. It came out later that Ohtani and his reps declined imaging and testing after he left a start on August the 3rd against the Mariners after only 4 innings and 59 pitches. He was having some cramping in his hand and fingers and declined imaging at that point. Returned to the mound 6 days later, beat San Francisco, throwing 97 pitches and allowing only 1 run. Skipped his next turn with fatigue, and then Wednesday was pulled after 26 pitches. The scans after the game showed the torn UCL. The Angels GM said the only time we had imaging was after he felt the injury. The imaging was offered earlier in the year, and his representation turned it down. The GM didn't fault the lack of an earlier scan. He says, I get it. It was a cramp in his finger, and he didn't think it really was worth anything. And the GM has 0 regrets. There's injuries that happen, and it's unfortunate, but it's tough for him and tough for the game, and it's definitely tough for the game. But he continues to be in the lineup as a DH. As we mentioned, he had previously had Tommy John surgery in this arm in 2018. Um, and what was gonna be, a could have been easily been a $600 million contract this offseason is at least four. Like he lost at least 200 million with this, I think. Um, and that was one of my, other than you felt bad for him. I think that was one of the first things I said in the group chat was, "Yep, that's $200 million down the drain." And you don't
Yeah.
want to think like that, but at the same time, from a business standpoint, that's what that means for him. I mean, he's going to be down some money. I'm sure he'll make that up in endorsements and whatnot. Um, you know, if the team is offering to do imaging, I'm not really sure how I feel about it, but I'm open to what you think about this, Andrew. Is, should the Angels have insisted on the imaging as opposed to just offering it?
He, the thing that drives me nuts about this is that they were offering an MRI. MRIs have no radiation. And as long as you don't have metal in your body, there's really zero risk to you. They're going to, you'll have earmuffs on and all that so that the loud noise won't bother you. And I know some people are a little claustrophobic, but I feel like as a professional athlete, with just given the risk of injuries, just playing whatever game you play, you're going to be stuck in the tube at some point. That's just what it is. Um, I, 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 I don't understand why when the team says, "Hey, can we be precautionary here and just check this?" Why wouldn't you say yes? Because if you're playing the long game to get the biggest contract you can get, which should be the game that they're playing, uh, why wouldn't you get the imaging and know for sure? Because let's remember when Max Fried hurt his elbow earlier this year, Atlanta was very proactive. They got him scanned right away. They saw that there was inflammation in the elbow, but that it wasn't torn. So they shut him down. And he was down for 2 to 3 months. And now he's back in pitching. And it's been a little bumpy getting him back, but he's been showing flashes of his normal self. And that's going to get better as he gets more reps and more innings in. And, side bonus, he's going to be fresher for October when Atlanta really needs him. So instead of taking a weapon away from the team when it matters, they took a weapon away from the team when, okay, we don't have Fried for a couple months in the middle of the season. Well, okay, it sucks, but again, I'd rather have Max Fried in September, October than in June, July, but no September, October. Like, I understand players should have the right to their bodies. They should have the right to decline to a point. They should have a right to decline certain testing, perhaps. This is kind of bringing back what we were talking about with the Mets a few weeks ago and how they badly screwed up 4 phenomenal pitching prospect arms that should have been a strong 4-man rotation for years to come that they just completely screwed up and botched. But let's remember, too, a lot of that was also that the Mets basically let the players run the show and how they wanted testing and training and all that to be, that's a little different than this case where the Angels said, "Hey, we can scan that if you like." I kind of wonder maybe if there could be a little bit of miscommunication perhaps from the front office to Ohtani's reps. If they would have made it maybe seem a little more urgent, "Hey, we'd really like to get this checked out. It's probably nothing, but hey, let's just be on the safe side, and that way we definitely know, hey, this is something we need to watch out for. No, this is really no big deal. Plus, let's be realistic here. Well, the cost of an MRI is prohibitive for you and I if we don't need it. It's nothing to these guys. The money is no issue whatsoever for either the team or the player."
Yeah, I don't know if, going back to your Max Fried analogy, do you think that the Braves keep Fried down as long as they did if they didn't have all that other firepower? Does
Yeah,
that
I think
factor into this at all?
no, I don't think it does. I think Atlanta's plan all along was to play the long game and keep Fried down as long as necessary to make sure he was good to go for the late part of the season. Because the type of injury Fried had, it was one of those, it could have been you need Tommy John surgery if it would progress any farther. And I think that's why the Braves were extremely conservative in how they wanted to treat it. Because it was swollen, but it wasn't to the point that he had done structural damage to his elbow. And when you get it to that point, rest is your best curative. I mean, he didn't start throwing for 6 weeks at least. So I don't think Atlanta's success played anything into how they were handling Fried. I think Fried was being handled separately. If Atlanta would have gone exactly opposite in June, I don't think Atlanta would have pushed the timetable to push him back sooner. Okay. If that's what you're getting at, I don't think they would.
Yeah, I'm curious how that plays out. I'm not, I don't own stock in the Braves. I don't follow them as religiously as you do, other than the show. So I just was curious as to your thoughts on that, because they got off to a real tear, and they didn't really have to worry about Fried because they had quality arms making really good adjustments coming up. So
yeah, that's very true. Obviously we're not going to know, had the Braves slumped bad enough, would they have been tempted to try and push it along? But based on how they've handled pitching injuries the last couple years, I think they've generally shown themselves to be a fairly conservative team when it comes to pitching injuries. They really don't like to push guys that aren't ready to be pushed. Look at Jesse Chavez. This might be a better one to look at. He took the line drive to the shin. He had the swelling, and they thought they were going to be able to get him back out there pretty quick. He wanted to get back out there pretty quick, but when the pain persisted, they let the swelling go down. They checked an MRI of his femur, and they saw the microfractures and knew he was going to be down until September. Because that's just, microfractures are just a time injury. There is nothing to speed that along except rest and patience, maybe a little extra calcium.
The other thing I consider looking at the timetable for this is that Ohtani, the first imaging was offered on August 3rd, and this is just after the Angels shelled out at the deadline in hopes of staying hot. So maybe he thought that his best position was in the lineup of some kind. Obviously, they've tanked significantly since then, but I think at the time maybe that factors into some of it from a player standpoint. I do, I kind of agree with you that if they're offering it, I mean, it's really relatively pain-free. It's relatively inconvenience-free. I don't know what reasons they cited at all, but I didn't see the reasons that Ohtani's reps gave for not doing it.
Yeah.
Other than they just didn't think it was serious, and maybe at that point it wasn't.
And I understand cramping in the hand. I get it. You don't necessarily think it's going to be major enough, but you look at the timeline of how things happened. I
mean,
it's a tough one.
You figure somewhere in that start against the Giants, something must have gone, funky toward the end there, or maybe it was in the bullpen session. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, he did fine. The Giants outing was fine. 6 innings, 1 unearned run. Then he had the fatigue. Then he tried to pitch. They had the 26 pitches, and then that was it. You can't tell me that somewhere in their imaging wouldn't have picked something up. I'm not buying that.
I'm sure it would have picked something up. What it picks up, obviously I'm not Nostradamus when it comes to that, but I think you're probably right. It would have picked something up. Maybe not something serious, but maybe something minor that some rest would have made a difference for him. I don't know.
And the other thing too, let's say he doesn't want to sit in the tube for the MRI. They could have done an ultrasound. Ultrasounds do ligament damage too. Maybe not in quite the detail that the MRI would, but maybe the ultrasound would have showed enough to say, hey, there might be something here. We should do an MRI next. If he doesn't want the big tube first, do it smaller. I mean, obviously you can't do an X-ray first. Ligaments aren't going to show up on an X-ray, but
right.
Start with the ultrasound, even a CAT scan, maybe.
I mean, I don't know if I didn't see why they said no, other than they didn't think it was anything significant. So maybe that was a factor, maybe it wasn't. And with functional MRIs now, a lot of them are open.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, a lot of them are the open tubes, not the closed tubes anymore. So
yeah.
Well, anyway, so I mean, the nice thing for Ohtani is at least his bat stays in the lineup. So, and when I checked earlier today, lucky you, I'm the one who had to cut the guy because he's dumb and doesn't make it one player. Just saying. I did check earlier today on the season stats, and he did jump back ahead of Matt Olson by 1 in the home run race. It's 44-43. So, it's something to watch out for going as we go the rest of the way. All right, and then Joe, last night we had some fireworks down in Tampa Bay because it was Yankees Rays. Brandon Lowe, he led the way for the Rays with home run 4 RBIs, but his efforts were overshadowed because there were a pair of bench clearing incidents in the 8th inning. So first, Randy Arozarena was hit by a 3-1 pitch by Albert Abreu in the 8th. And let's note, he was the 4th Tampa Bay player hit in the game. 4th. Arozarena was previously hit twice by the Yankees back on May 5th, once by Abreu after he hit a long home run. Again, not suspicious at all, right? There's no rule book here that says anything about this. Arozarena, through his interpreter, said, quote, "I think it was on purpose. If you look back at the previous series, he's hit me before. I've been hit in the previous series before that. They hurt Yandy Diaz the other day. They hit Isaac Paredes on the head. So I think it was probably an issue for them. Several players had to be restrained, including Diaz. So then Arozarena said, all right, screw you. He stole second, stole third, and then kept yelling at Abreu. The benches and bullpens emptied for a second time. Now, it should be noted there were no punches thrown in either incident, so there won't be suspensions or anything like that. For the season, the Yankees have hit 12 Rays batters, while the Rays have only hit 2 Yankees batters. Now, Lowe just this post-game interview, he just dropped the mic and walked off. Looking at it in a different view, it's a last place team. We don't need to worry about it. We need to focus up on what we need to do down the stretch. If they lose a guy, it's not going to be quite as big of a deal as if we're losing one of our guys. We're focused up on kind of a bigger picture. First of all, I loved that. Talk about slapping your division rivals right in the face.
That interview was pretty priceless. That clip went viral very quickly last night.
I loved it. I mean, and he's right. The Yankees, they're 6 games under 500. That streak of 30 consecutive winning seasons is definitely in danger. The last 16 batters for the Yankees last night made outs. 16 straight to end the game. The Yankees are 0-8-2 in series since their last series win, which was against Oakland back in late June. The Yankees have been held to 4 hits or fewer 23 times this year. Aaron Boone said, "We haven't been very good. Everything has been a challenge." Oh, shit.
That might be the understatement of the year. This is coming from the same guy who said, other than the strikeouts, we did okay.
How does he still have a job?
Because he backed into the playoffs last year. We've discussed this ad nauseum.
No, I understand that part. How does he still have a job at this point in the season?
Well,
4 hits or less 23 times. They haven't won a series since they played the frickin' Athletics. I don't understand why he still has a job. It can't get worse. They're already under 500 and flailing.
It could get worse.
I
don't know by how much, but it could get worse.
I mean, as amusing as that would be.
Yeah. I'll say this: they weren't this unsuccessful with Joey Gallo on the team.
Hey, he might have only hit 183 or whatever, but damn it, they did better.
Yep.
Oh man. So yeah. I honestly though, that that comment, they're a last place team. Them losing guys doesn't matter because they're a last place team.
Yeah, I mean, they just seem to be in free fall, and I mean, I reiterate what I said last week that this is one of those things where if you're a Yankee fan, you want them to clean house immediately. This
Yeah.
is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, this is not the Yankee way to quote some folks. That this is not the Yankee way. This is insane.
No, this is about as far off the Yankee way as you are ever going to see the Yankees be.
Yeah, next thing you know, Aaron Boone's gonna have facial hair. I don't know what dugout he'll be in, but he'll have facial hair.
It won't be the Yankees dugout, that's for sure. All right, let's move it on. We'll talk about the Braves next. Excellent week for Atlanta. They went 4-2, 2 out of 3 from the Mets, 2 out of 3 from the Giants. And that was a road series for the Giants. So they lost game 1 to the Mets 10-4, won game 2 3-2, game 3 7-0. And then for the Giants, they won game 1 5-1, game 2 7-3, lost game 3 8-5. That was the Sunday night baseball game on ESPN. I don't put a whole lot of stock into that because, as we know, screwy stuff happens. So the Braves clinched the season series against the Mets 10-3. Morton had a great game in the finale against the Mets, 7 innings, 2 hits, no runs, 11 strikeouts, and a walk. The Braves held the Mets to only 3 hits in the final game. Earlier in the series, Bryce Elder hit Pete Alonso to the delight of the Atlanta fans at Truist. Neither player gave any indication that they believed it was deliberate. Like, do you remember when that idiot on the Marlins hit Acuna and immediately dropped his glove like he was ready for Ronald to charge out at him?
Yeah,
Like, that's that and the fact that it was the fastest pitch he had thrown all season was why I knew that was deliberate. Like, I watched the replay a couple times. I know you thought it was deliberate. I think Jason thought it was deliberate as well. And I'm going to admit, obviously I've got the Braves bias. I didn't see anything just in the body action of the players. I did not see anything that indicated to me that it was deliberate. And like we said earlier this year, Pete Alonso did the whole throw it again to Bryce Elder. Morton hit him in the next game and broke his wrist, although that was definitely an accident. That was on either an 0-1 or an 0-2 pitch. He's just trying to run a fastball inside the loss. And actually, Charlie actually reached out to Alonso after that game to make sure he was okay and to apologize. So maybe this is something, maybe it's not. Here's the thing: Bryce Elder throws about as fast as Greg Maddux, so it's not like getting hit with a Charlie Morton 97-mile-an-hour fastball. And he got him, he got him in a nice meaty area. It's not like he tried to snap about him, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like he was a little slower. Again, I don't watch Bryce Elder pitch every week, so I mean, it looked like his motion was a little bit slower. The step was a little bit more like he was trying to aim a little bit more. That's the way I interpreted it from seeing it. But I mean, I'm not surprised that the Mets don't react. I mean, Alonso gets hit every other day, and I mean the Mets lead the league in hit by a pitch, I think, by a significant margin.
Yeah, I think
so. They don't react anymore because they're so used to it.
Well, Alonso's kind of a dick. I'm just going to call it like it is. Let's look at last week when he threw a rookie's first hit 20 rows up.
Yeah, that wasn't an accident. There's no way it was. It doesn't look like one. And
no,
this Elder pitch didn't look like an accident either, at least to me.
Yeah.
And do I really care? No, I'm not a huge Alonso guy, but I expect Alonso to move with all the things you're hearing out of New York right now.
Yeah.
I expect him to move in the offseason anyhow.
Well, and one thing to keep in mind too, the Mets have no place this year to say anything to Atlanta. They got their asses handed to them all season, 10-3 on the season series. I mean, the Mets should be thankful that the scheduling format was changed, because otherwise they would have one or two more series with Atlanta where they would probably either get swept or drop 2 out of 3 yet again. The run totals for the series on the year, 96-54 in favor of Atlanta. And of those 13 games, Atlanta shut the Mets out 4 times.
Yeah, you can't argue with the results and the numbers there. There's really not much to argue about.
Nope. So, yeah, I mean, the Mets, yeah, we saw what happened. They sold off everything that wasn't remotely bolted down to the deck of the ship because it was sinking. So, Alonso could have been plunked 6 times in the series, and I don't think they would have said anything, because I think the spirit of that team is completely and utterly broken.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of Met fans who are also Giant fans have shifted into football mode. They're like George Costanza right now.
Right.
They've shifted into football mode.
Hey, Giants might not be a bad team this year.
No, I would not be surprised if they make some noise.
All right. So, speaking of moving on in the seasons, let's move into the hunt for October. So, we're going to look at where we stand heading into September. And I've got the remaining strength of schedule on here as well. Jason's comment on his only comment on this was LOL, Mets and Yankees. So let's look at the East first. Obviously, top of the division's Atlanta, 84-45. They've got a 12.5 game lead in the division. That's not going anywhere. They've pretty much have the division locked up. Best record in baseball by 3 games to the Orioles, and best record in the NL by 4 games to the Dodgers. So top record is still very much in play. So I don't expect to see Atlanta take the foot off the pedal anytime soon. Plus, they're going to try and build some momentum moving into October anyway. Notable games that are left. They've got 4 at the Dodgers coming up, 4 at the Phillies, 3 at home with the Phillies, and then they've got the Marlins once for 3 on the road. And then we've got the Cubbies late in the year at home as well. So that's going to be potentially a very big series depending on how things play out for both teams. Atlanta's remaining strength of schedule is 17th. So definitely on the happier half for the Braves. A little worse than league average. The worst strength of schedule for any team remaining, Joe, if you were curious, is the Washington Nationals. Their opponents' combined winning percentage is .544. They've got Atlanta 7 times, the Orioles twice, the Dodgers 3 times, the Brewers 3 times, Blue Jays 3 times, the Brewers 4 times. So the roughest road to the end is the Nationals. Not that it matters because they're long out of playoff contention. Jason's comments in Atlanta, the Braves knew they'd be up there. For them, it's not a matter of winning the division. It's a matter of going deeper with a deep team. Can they actually get hot and avoid being knocked out by a hot team this year? Honestly, anything less than the LCS is a wasted season. He brings up a good point. This is a team built to go deep. I don't think, again, last year, I don't know so much that it was they weren't hot and the Phillies were hot. It's that they were spent catching the Mets. I don't think it has anything to do with how hot or cold the team was. I think they were just emotionally, physically spent, but that doesn't really matter. Any other thoughts on Atlanta, Joe? I think it's their road's pretty straightforward. Just win enough games to hold the top seed.
Yeah, I mean that's their prime objective, and once they do that, if they can, if somebody falls off the earth and they can do it sooner, the better, and get some guys some extra days off here and there. I mean, and honestly, even if you're the 2 in the National League, you're still benefiting from that, and they've shown that they can win anywhere. So honestly, I'd start sprinkling those extra days off here and there now. Screw it.
Well, and that's why Nicky Lopez was such a big acquisition for them, because he can play all the infield spots, so he can spell Riley. Although I'm going to put money down right now that Matt Olson's not going to take a day off. That's just the guy he is.
Not likely. I mean, I think he should take his regular ones if they give him one, but I don't think he's going to get
he never takes them off. He almost always plays 162 every year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not shocked by that, and as long as he can stay healthy, that's fine. I mean, he's also been playing 162 for the A's, who had no hope of a future. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's something to consider. The first time you're on a club that's contending, those extra days off in late September are going to help you.
Yeah, 2018, 162. 2019, I think he had an injury that year. He only played 127. He played all 60 in the strike shortened or the COVID shortened season, 156 and 21 the last year with Oakland, and then 162 last year. So he will likely play every game this year, I would think, or
Yeah,
close to it.
and best wishes for the health to do that. That's excellent.
Yeah.
I
Do
do
it while
I
you're
do think
young.
we start to sprinkle some of those days off in though for the other
Yeah,
guys for sure.
definitely a possibility. The Phillies are at 72 and 58. They lead the wild card teams. They're 3.5 games ahead of the final wild card team, which is Arizona going into games tonight. Tougher road for the Phillies. They have the 10th. They have the 10th hardest strength of schedule. 3 at the Brewers, 3 versus the Marlins, 4 versus the Braves, and 3 at the Braves. So a lot coming up for the Phillies. Jason said the Phillies have big 2 weeks coming up with their wild card spot, as a lot of teams in the races are going to be playing each other as well. The Phillies should be fine. I don't think they're going to lose a wild card spot. Will they hold on to the top spot? Probably, but I don't want to say definitely because we still have a month and 4 days to go, and anything can happen in that time. But they should be pretty safe, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to happen. I think a lot of that depends on the NL Central bloodbath here, and what happens there. Um, you know, but yeah, they certainly could maintain that top spot as long as they continue to do what they need to do, which is at minimum win 2 out of 3 every week, every series.
Yep. And the Marlins are at 66 and 65. They're 3 games back of the final wild card spot. They have the 5th toughest road to the end of the season. 2 versus the Rays, 3 versus the Dodgers, 3 at the Phillies, 4 at the Brewers, 3 against Atlanta, 3 against the Brewers. Jason's over comment for the Marlins, the Reds, and he thinks the Giants as well. He thinks they're all fading fast. Will the Diamondbacks hold on to that last spot and sneak into the playoffs? I'm with Jason on this one. I'm with that schedule. The Marlins have really not very many breaks coming up in it. They have the only sub 500 teams. They've got the Nationals 4 times, the Mets 6 times, and the Pirates 3 times. That is not a lot built in, and that's not a team that's played great against 500 plus opponents this year. So I do agree with Jason. I think the Marlins are going to fade out and will not be a factor in that final wild card spot.
Yeah, I would say I agree with that. I think they have to play near perfect baseball, and as we've seen from you know losing Garrett Cooper, losing Gene Segura at the trade deadline, which still makes no sense to me. Um, and then having um, your one big trade deadline acquisition basically bomb out since he came over in David Robertson. I mean, that's you're not going to get it done.
No.
They don't play. You have to play near perfect baseball, and they're just not capable of doing that.
Let me see here. Their record against teams with greater than a 500 record this year is 30 and 40. I'm not seeing it. I think the Marlins are going to fall short. All right, Joe, how about the NL Central, since you know this division way better than I ever will?
Yeah, the Brewers currently lead this division by 4 games, alluding to what I mentioned earlier. They were up 3.5 at the beginning of this last week or two, and you know, rattled off enough wins to make the Cubs lose ground. Go from 3.5 to 4 games. Their schedule, they've got 3 at the Cubs that started tonight. Notable games against 3 against the Phillies, 4 against the Marlins, another 3 against the Marlins, and then 4 against the Cubs. And I think that's the end of the year. I think that's the last series of the season. I believe.
Yes. Yeah, it's right after the Atlanta series, which is the second to last.
Right. So We really, I mean, when we talk about the Brewers, we've always thought that they just didn't have enough offense to do it, really. And they've had enough offense this year to, you know, stay where they are now. Granted, the rest of the NL Central has not been good the entire year. Um, but, you know, I don't know that they have enough. I'm hoping they don't have enough in the tank, obviously, um, to make it, but the whole way through it and finish winning the NL Central. But as an unbiased observer, I'm interested in your opinion on that one.
So the Brewers have a plus 19 run differential, 574 scored, 555 against. They're pretty even home and road. Not a ton of difference there. They're a little bit over 500 against a little bit over 500 against teams better than 500 37-36. Here's the thing, based on that run differential, their expected win-loss should be at like 67 and 63. So that's 6 runs less than where they are currently at. So this is a team that is overachieving. They're overachieving. Now, granted, they have a fairly easy path to the end. They have a much easier schedule than the Cubs do. That said, those 7 games with the Brewers and the Cubs, I think, will decide the division. And I got to be honest, Joe, I don't know that I trust Milwaukee's offense to be able to sustain. They may do really well in the other games going to the end, but those 7 against the Cubs, I don't know if they'll be able to do enough to hold the Cubs off. I don't know if I'm quite ready to say that I'm going to throw my hat in the ring for the Cubs to take it, but I'm pretty damn close. I want to see how this week goes before I'm fully ready to do that. But this is the time of the year when Milwaukee starts to crumble. They always have, as evidenced by their massive number of 0 World Series rings in the history of that franchise. So the numbers speak for themselves. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I do think that's always been their Achilles heel. Their offense has just never been enough. I don't think a Contreras brother is going to change that by any means. Um, with William behind the dish for them. Um, I'm not. I've never been scared of them. I've always said that when we have Brewers series, like I'm not scared of these guys. I
Chicago
mean,
North.
yeah, we've had Corbin Burns as the opening day starter against the Cubs for 2-3 years now, and the Cubs have won every single one of those starts. So I'm not scared of him if I'm a Cub fan. Um, you know, so I don't know that I'm not going to count him out, obviously, as a realist and a Cub fan forever who knows shit just happens. Um, but I do tend to agree with you. I think the offense is something that the Brewers have always lacked enough of it.
Yep.
So, um, and then the Cubs, we've talked about them quite a bit. Obviously, they're currently 69 and 61, 4 behind the Brewers. They're second wild card team by a half a game ahead of the Diamondbacks, and 3 games behind Philly. The 3 against the Brewers tonight, the 3 against the Brewers at the end of the year, 4 at the Reds, 3 with the Giants, 4 with the Diamondbacks, 3 at the Diamondbacks, 3 at the Braves, 3 at the Brewers ends the season. Um,
It's a
if
tough
they,
road.
it looked a lot easier before the last 2 weeks. Um, you know, um, the last 2 weeks were the weeks where they had to play perfect baseball, and they almost did. Um, 8-4 is nothing to shake a stick at, obviously, but when your rival wins 8 in a row, that 8-4 doesn't mean anything. Um, you know, so I have my own thoughts about the Cubs, but you know, I'm more interested in yours and Jason's on this one because I'm just too up and down with them because I ride the wave every day.
You've been riding that wave since you were born, man. When you're born as a Cubs fan, I mean, that wave never stops. Jason's thought was they're hottish. They've got to keep it going. They've got to keep the pedal down. And I completely agree with that. They definitely have a tougher road, no doubt about it. The only teams they play with losing records and the rest of the way out, they've got 6 with the Rockies and 3 with the Pirates. That said, of these teams on the list, the Reds may not stay above 500. They should, but they might not. The Giants are fading. They're not a team I am particularly worried about right now. Based on what I saw with Atlanta and Philadelphia playing them back to back to back like that, I'm not. Their pitching is not good enough. Their offense has pop. Their offense, if it gets going, will be a problem. But their pitching really doesn't worry me that much. I think the Cubs will be in the playoffs. I'm definitely willing to say I think they will hold on to one of the 3 spots. And I think like I said with Milwaukee, I think it is a definite possibility that they pass the Brewers and take the division. After this week, we will know a lot more about how this is going to be with that. This 3-gamer with the Brewers might be the biggest series the Cubs have all year because that's going to, and then to have the Reds right afterwards. We always talk about you have to do well against the teams in your division. It's so important to do well against the division teams, more than almost anything else, because that's so important in determining standings and everything else. And like I said, I'm not ready to anoint them the NL Central crown yet, but I would not be shocked if they ended up taking it. Against the Central this year, the Cubs are 24-15. The Brewers are 24-12. The Reds are 16-23. And that's what's going to catch up with the Reds, I think. If you can't beat the teams in your division, that's a problem. That's a very big problem. And unlike the Brewers, the Cubbies have had some success against the other divisions, 9-8 against the West versus 13-19, although the Brewers are 10-9 against the East versus 11-17. So, we'll see how that goes, but it's going to be a tight race, and it's going to be one hell of a roller coaster of glass cage of emotion for you from here to the end of the season. But I don't think you can count the lovable losers of Chicago out.
Yeah, I don't want to count them out. I think when they throw up a lineup like they did tonight, I'm a little frustrated. Obviously, they're down 5-2 now currently, still. So, the Reds. I think I agree with you. They're fading. The Giants are fading. The Marlins are faded. So obviously it's either going to be the Cubs or the Brewers that holds a wild card spot, depending on who wins the division. Obviously, which I don't think we expected the Central to have 2 playoff teams at the beginning of this year. So,
nope.
The fact that we're in this position at all is remarkable, and I will say it anytime I'm able to say it. Dansby Swanson was the steal of the free agent class.
Yeah,
The best shortstop in the game. Best outs above average in the entire league.
No, I can't argue too much. I watched the guy for years. I love Dansby. I will never not love Dansby. Hell of a guy. Great clubhouse leader. Great glove. And, he's a little streaky sometimes hitting, but more often than not, he shows up.
Yep.
And then there's the Reds.
Yeah, and we've pretty much beat this one up. I think they start to fade a lot quickly here going down the stretch.
And they've got an easy schedule. They have the 23rd strength of schedule. If they were going to catch fire again, they have the schedule to do it. But Joe, I think the team's too young, and I don't think they have enough veterans on that team to help guide a young team for how to handle September, October. I think that's going to catch up with them.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, they've made a lot of good decisions this year with bringing up guys and it's panned out. But I just think that
They're
that
like,
inexperience is going to hurt at this point in the year. That inexperience is going to crush you.
yeah.
And so I don't expect them to stay in it. The fact that they've been in it this long is excellent. I don't think they have a prayer in catching the division. Do they have a chance of catching the wild card if Arizona gets cold again? Yes. But is Arizona going to get cold again? I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, 6 games isn't insurmountable, but it's not great
It
either.
feels like it.
Yeah, you're getting close to the point of the year where 6 games is a much bigger mountain to climb than it was even 2-3 weeks ago.
I mean, the Brewers are not the Mets with a 7-game lead in the middle of September. So, this is not the same division, and I don't think that you get to the point now where 6 games is insurmountable, realistically speaking.
You were Boston with what, a 10 or a 12 game lead that they blew one
12,
year?
I think, yeah.
All right, let's look at the West. The Dodgers 80-49. This division, like the East, this division's over. They're up 12. They do trail the Braves by 4. So again, they're going to be pushing for that best record. And we do have Dodgers Braves coming up actually this week. They also have the Diamondbacks, the Marlins, Mariners, Giants twice. So they've got the number 13 strength of schedule. The Dodgers are going to be fine. They're going to be in. They'll either be 1 or 2, probably 2. I do think Atlanta's going to be able to hold them off, but even if they don't, again, with Atlanta and LA, it doesn't matter if they're 1 or 2. The Diamondbacks are number 2 in the division at 69-62. That's a pretty nice record. They lead the final wild card spot by a game and a half of the Reds. They've got 3 at the Dodgers, 3 with the O's. They've got 4 with the Cubs, 3 at the Cubs, 2 at the Giants, 3 at the Astros. So, Jason brought this up, Joe. The fact that all the wild card teams are going to be playing each other a lot over the next couple weeks, it's gonna say a lot. Arizona's got the number 11th toughest schedule going to the end of the year, so we'll see where that goes. I know you probably don't have anything else to say about the D-backs, but anything or about the Dodgers, excuse me, but anything about the D-backs?
I think I don't see a ton of change in the NL wild card at this point. Realistically speaking, the Giants have too many games against the Dodgers down the stretch. The Cubs, if they do everything right the way they're supposed to, that's a tough series for the Giants, and I just don't know that they have enough firepower to get over the top.
And speaking of the Giants, they're at 67-63. They trail the final wild card spot by a game and a half. They've got the Reds, the Cubs, the Diamondbacks, and 2 series of the Dodgers. So 7 games to the Dodgers total. They do have a lot of fluffy teams in there. They are the number 19 strength of schedule remaining. That said, I'm with you. Based on what I just saw about how they performed against Atlanta and Philadelphia in back-to-back-to-back series, I don't really think anybody should be looking at the Giants as a threat at this point.
No, I mean I think they'll eliminate the Reds this week and put the Reds on the back burner. And they might keep things interesting until that D-back series happens, and then that'll be it.
The one thing the Giants do have going for them, they do have 14 games against both the Rockies and the Padres, along with 3 games against the Guardians. So, like I said, there's enough fluff in there. Unless, San Diego might finally decide to play baseball for the first time all season. Stranger things have happened.
I'm not counting on a San Diego resurgence.
Oh, no, I'm not counting on it. I just love to see it just to throw the NL West into utter chaos. I would love to see that because I believe the Dodgers still have 3 games with the Padres. So, if the Padres want to take that series, I wouldn't be too upset. All right, let's move into the American League where things could be a little more volatile than they are. Like in the National League, you've got the East and the West leaders are miles ahead. So those 2 divisions are basically locked up. And there's not going to be a ton of competition for the wild card. Joe, you nailed it when you said, other than maybe some standings moving up and down, which wild card slot they end up being, we probably have our team. We probably have the NL squad done now. Anything could happen. We could be wrong, but it's probably close to done. The American League, it's a little more volatile. So you want to lead off with the East?
Yeah, you look at the American League East. We have the four teams really to discuss here. You have the O's at 81 and 49, lead their division by 2 over the Rays, top record in the AL by 2 games, and they trail the Braves by 3 for the best record in the entire league. Um, you know, they have 4 against the Rays, 3 against the Astros, 7 against the Red Sox, and 3 against the Diamondbacks. So an interesting schedule coming up for them. The Rays trail the O's by 2. As we mentioned, they lead the top wild card spot by 6 games. Um, so um, they seem to be safely in. It's just a matter of where they're going to be. To me, if you look at the Rays, their schedule here, 4
It's
with
tough. The Rays have a tough road out, though.
they
So
sure do. The Rays have a tough road. I do think that they built themselves enough of a cushion that they'll probably be able to sustain it and get through it. Um, their schedule, notable games: 4 against the O's, 4 against the Mariners, 6 against the Blue Jays, 5 against the Red Sox, 3 with the Twins, 2 with the Marlins. So a pretty tough road for them to end the year. I do think they have enough fluff to stay in the playoffs in one way, shape, or form.
of the 500 or better teams, they have the hardest strength of schedule left. They have the number
Yeah.
4 hardest. This is and their schedule, Joe. This is why I think the Orioles are going to hold on to the top spot. I think they're going to take the division. I think they're going to take top record in the AL because I think that's the Rays. Don't get me wrong. The Rays have played great baseball all year, no doubt about it. But and because there's always a but with a record, with a lineup like this coming through, and they've played well against 500 teams, 36 and 32. But with this many teams over 500, that's just baseball. They're going to stumble a little bit here and there. They're going to maybe lose a series or two that you wouldn't perhaps have expected them to lose. So that's why I think I'm going to take the Orioles winning, and I'm going to take the Rays second in the division. I don't, even with them stumbling a little bit, I think you're right. I think they have built up more than enough cushion that they will hold on to the top wild card spot.
Yeah, that's where I see it. I think when you look at the rest of that division, um, obviously the Yankees are where they are. The Blue Jays, it feels like they just haven't had enough firepower to stay in contention. They haven't won the games they need to win. Um, they're only 2.5 back, but to me, you get to this point in the year, 2.5 or more start to look insurmountable because enough things have to go right. You have to win, and they have to lose.
Now, they have a chance to move because the Blue Jays still have 6 games with the Rays. So, of
Right.
the teams that are back, I would give them a better chance of trying to sneak in than I would give the Red Sox at 4.5 back, who still have a much tougher schedule with the O's, the Rays, the Rangers, the Astros, and the Blue Jays all left.
Yeah,
So, just saying.
I would agree with you. I think of those two teams in the AL East, the Blue Jays have the best shot of getting back in the hunt. I think that 4.5, like I just said, anything 2.5, 3 or more is almost insurmountable because enough things have to go right um, for you to make that up, and I just don't think that they can.
But you know what, Joe? The Red Sox fans will still consider this season a success. They're over 500, and they should stay over 500, I think. And they've beaten the ever loving holy hell out of the Yankees all year, which, let's be real, when you're looking at Yankees Red Sox, they could go, 0 and 162, except for beating the Yankees. Their fans wouldn't care because they beat the damn Yankees.
Yeah, I would say that's probably fair both ways on that.
Yeah.
Um, to me, 2 maybe 3 teams from the AL East, and if it is a third team, it's the Blue Jays. But that's the O's have just continued to do what they need to do. There's really no other way to say it. The O's have done what they need to do all year long.
And they've done it in a very impressive fashion all year.
We will find out right away here just how bad not having Bautista is for them. Now that he's out. But I think they have enough in that bullpen and enough in the starting rotation to hold water, I think. Could they hold the division? Yes. Could the Rays overtake them? Sure. To me, that part is still to be decided. But, yeah. The Orioles are going to be in the playoffs, and if you're a lifelong O's fan around here, that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm really happy. Guys like Big Jim and all the other Orioles fans that are around here. I'm so happy for them because it's been a very, very, very rough stretch the last couple of years. One other thing too, the Orioles only need to take 1 out of 3 from Tampa in this home series to clinch the season series and clinch the tiebreaker with the Rays. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge to only need to take 1 out of 3. That's a lot of weight off the shoulders of that team.
For sure. Absolutely.
And we'll talk about the most boring division in the American League, the AL Central, with the Twins, I guess, have decided that, all right, sure, I will finally decide to win this damn thing. They're at a blistering pace of 68 and 63. Good God. That's a division leader going into September. Christ. Okay, they are up 6 over the Guardians. They have a really easy road out. They have the 29th easiest schedule. They have the Rays for 3, the Rangers for 3, the Reds for 3. If they lose this division, that's going to be hilarious. The only team that's got an easier road out is the Tigers, and the Tigers aren't going to do anything because the Tigers suck. So, yeah, that's all we're going to talk about with the Central because they're going to be one and done anyway. I don't care. Even if the Guardians manage to get past that 6-game climb to capture it, it doesn't matter. Twins Guardians are going to be one and done in the playoffs. So, how about the West?
Yeah.
Well, hold on, Ryan.
Obviously, I agree with you on the Central.
Ryan just popped on here. He's happy for all the Orioles fans except Big Jim. For those who don't know, Ryan's a co-host with Jim on 3 Count Thursdays. So, Ryan, I expected nothing less out of you, man. Sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
I expect Thursday's episode to be very spicy now with that rivalry there with Ryan. I think the Twins, obviously, like you said, locked this division up. The division's awful. I wouldn't discount the pitching they have in a short series. It's possible they could have enough to win one series or maybe a game or 2 in that series and make it competitive. But more than likely they'll be out. Moving on to the West, the Mariners have caught fire because they looked like they were pretty much dead in the water at the trade deadline, realistically. And now they lead the division by 1 game over the Rangers and the Astros. The AL West team in this in the AL will be the AL West champion will be the number 2 seed in the playoffs there. Their remaining schedule, the way that they've played, they have 3 with the Dodgers, 4 with the Rays, 7 with the Rangers, 3 with the Astros, and 3 with the Reds. So, if they can continue to play the way they've been playing, the sky's the limit for them. Their pitching's phenomenal. It's finally starting to show up. Their offense is finally starting to hit again. There's a lot to be excited about in Seattle for sure.
Yeah, Jason said, and I quote, "Holy shit, what a turnaround. Almost dead in the water, now they're leading the AL West." He's not wrong, man. When we did our episode at the All-Star break where we looked at our first half surprises and disappointments, I think the most universal pick for all of that We were disappointed in the Mets. We were disappointed in the Mariners. But unlike the Mets, the Mariners have turned it around, and what a turnaround it's been. I just wanted to note Ryan's comment here. Always good stuff. Boys love listening. Ryan, we appreciate it, bud. Can't wait to hear what goes on Thursday because Joe's right. I'm expecting a nice spicy episode on 3 Count Thursday now. So it's what a turnaround, and I know Jason's happy because Dave's his buddy. Been his buddy for a long time, and Dave has given us some great tips when it comes to which Mariners guys to look at for potential long-term keeper picks in fantasy baseball as well. So this turnaround is nothing short of miraculous. That said, this race is going to come down to the very end. I mean, these teams are on top of each other, and they all have games against each other, and they've all played well in the division. Well, this is wild, Joe. The Mariners are 22-11 in the AL West. The Rangers are 21-15. The Astros are 26-17. Now, I realize this means that they've probably all finished their year-long series with the Athletics, because that's typically why that number is so inflated. But damn, this is the race to watch.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this will be fun to see how this all plays out. The Rangers are, but like we said, both teams are back a game. The Rangers have the second wild card spot by 0.001 percentage points. Everything matters here. To quote the great Vin Diesel, it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile, but man, yeah. talk about tight inches here.
This is the division to watch. Looking at strength of schedule, the Mariners and the Rangers have virtually identical schedules, 16th and 15th. The Astros have a very easy road to the end. They have the 28th easiest, or the 28th hardest, so third easiest. Because that's because the Astros still have 3 with the Athletics. That's why 3 with the A's, 6 with the Royals, 3 with the Padres, 3 with the Yankees. It still blows my mind that seeing the Yankees is part of an easy schedule, not a hard schedule. It's funny. Sorry, Yankees fans, that's not nice. But to quote Acuna, I apologize for absolutely nothing. So, man, this is the race to watch. These games are going to be tight the entire way through, and this race, Joe, I'm expecting this race to go to the last week. I will be shocked if it doesn't.
Yeah, I think this one and on the NL Central, that those two are going to go into the last week of the season, the regular season, until we know exactly what's going to happen there.
I love the hunt for October. I love it.
Yeah.
I love that I was smart enough to not call it the hunt for Red October like I did the one time, because I still feel like there might be a couple movie companies that are a little upset about that one. So, Joe, I know it's a little early to think about it. We kind of talked about it a little bit throughout. Who's going to win? I think in the NL, I think, again, the East and the West are obvious. It's going to be the Dodgers and the Braves, the 1 or 2, and that might flip-flop. But that is what it is. And then Phillies will have a wild card spot. The Cubs, the loser of the Central between the Brewers and the Cubs will have a wild card spot. And then probably the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I think with the NL, we have our 6. It's just a matter of order for the wild card, really. And or the division, obviously, with the Central. But the 6 teams that are going to be in the playoffs are there. That's pretty. I think that's pretty cut and dry in the NL. I think in the AL, I think we probably have, two or three of the teams are pretty much locks at this point. And then the rest is kind of, we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, I'd say you can lock in Baltimore, you can lock in Tampa Bay, and then at least 2 of the teams in the West, maybe all 3. It's going to be interesting to see if Toronto's going to be able to mount a comeback, because it's not impossible. they're still close enough that they could make some noise, and maybe the AL West teams will cannibalize themselves. It
Well,
could happen.
you do have. I did see that Vlad Junior is taking reps at third. Chapman
Ooh.
is on the IL again. To me, that's a something they obviously didn't need. If you're a Blue Jay fan, and that's to me probably going to torpedo the season for them.
Yeah, that definitely could. Losing Chapman is going to really hurt that team.
Yeah, other than I mean, the middle of the season he was a little flat, but the beginning of the season he was, way
Yeah,
up, way above what he was expected to do.
yeah, definitely. All right, so let's move on to down on the farm. Jason sent me his guys. So first, the hitter for this week is Drake Baldwin of the Rome Braves. He is the number 28 prospect of Atlanta's top 30. The Rome Braves are Atlanta's high A affiliate. In the midst of a 15-game hitting streak, in the streak he is hitting 24 for 57, which is a 421 average, 5 home runs, 12 RBIs. If not for the first game of August, he'd have gone the entire month with a hit so far. Like that's wild, dude. That's like video game numbers. The pitcher is Teddy Stankovic of the Chattanooga Lookouts, the Double-A affiliate of the Reds. Jason, I swear to God, you better be back next week to pronounce these names, and I might pick your guys for you. Just saying. So Stankovic went 2-0 last week, 12 innings, 1 earned run allowed, 12 strikeouts. So excellent week for him. Joe, do you want to quick tell us about the Phillies? Jason sent us some wonderful notes, so we don't have to fight our way through looking back at him and Ron, alternatively cheering and complaining simultaneously about how things were going last week.
Yeah, I tell you what, man, I don't know how. I don't know how Jason makes it through a day. Sometimes the negative talk on the Phillies in one inning, and then the positive talk in the next half inning. I can't handle it, and I'm a Cub fan. So what does that tell you? Amazing, almost perfect week for the Phils. Jason was at 2 games this week. This past week, he was there Monday when they won 10-4 over the Giants. Harper had an inside the park homer, although he said he wouldn't have been upset if they called it a triple with the air instead of the homer. But that's water under the bridge at this point. Taking 2 out of 3 from the Giants was huge. The Giants are right behind them in the playoffs, or they're lower now, obviously. But taking 2 out of 3 there was huge. Trey had a walk-off on Tuesday, and Harper had a 3-run tying homer in the 9th. The Pen gave that game back in extra. So tough way to lose, and in this stretch you can't lose these kind of games. But tough way to lose, but took the series, which was huge. They swept the Cardinals. Thank you, Jason. And he was at the game on Friday. He is on a 6-game live winning streak, 5-1 on the week for the Philly. A great week for them. If you're listening, if you want to continue this run you're on, you need to have Jason at every game. This is Angels in the outfield level stuff here now.
And boy, it wasn't earlier this year. He couldn't. That dude couldn't watch a win if he paid for it. So
he's there for wins, but he's not there for Zach Wheeler starts.
Yeah, right. Just mentioning that Harper inside the park home run. I watched the replay because my dad had actually texted me about that and was like, "Did you see this? Do you think they rolled it right?" I watched it a couple times. I think it really should have been rolled a triple and then home on the error because the center fielder bobbled it twice. I understand Harper's got decent enough speed. He might have been okay, but I think it was still close enough on the throw home after 2 bobbles that it should have been triple and an error. But as you said, it's water under the bridge. It doesn't matter now. And I did appreciate when I reached out to Jason, because I told my dad my opinion, but I wanted to hear from Jason because he was also in the park for the game. And I was glad to hear that Jason also thought it probably should have been really a triple with the error. Also, it's about time Trey Turner hasn't sucked like he has all season for my number 1 overall pick. Asshole.
Yeah, Trey Turner had his Alec Bohm moment about 3 weeks ago or so, and has been electric ever since. And that's just really been a turning point for them. So,
Have you
um,
noticed he's been in my lineup a lot more ever since that moment?
honestly, I pay attention to my own lineup. I can't control yours. So, but yeah, look, crazier things have happened, and when it comes to scores and those decisions there, whether it's a triple in an air or not, um, it brought up. It made me think of I was reading a book on DiMaggio by Kostya Kennedy. It was 56, and they talked
Mhm.
about a game where it probably was an error, but everybody's looking up at the scorekeeper to see if he's going to give him the hit to keep the streak alive and all that. So it's amazing the power the scorekeeper has.
Yeah. Well, MLB will occasionally go back and be like, no, you got this wrong, sport. They generally speaking, they'll let the scorekeepers go. The only time I really take too much complaint with scorekeepers is how they award holds because there is no consistency with that whatsoever. But anyway. All right, looking at the hot lists, 4 hitters for me. I'm going to go with Atlanta's own Marcelo Zuna. Great week last week. Slash line 524, 583, 1.333, 9 runs, 5 homers, 10 RBIs, 11 hits, 2 doubles, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. Jason's hot hitter was Elias Diaz of the Rockies, 500 last week. He had a home run and 7 RBIs. Joe, did you have a hot hitter before the Moneyball?
No, I don't.
All right, so who is the Moneyball hitter of this week?
The Moneyball hitter this week is Mookie Betts, who made a triumphant return back to Fenway this weekend, first time as a Dodger. 9 runs last week, 16 hits, 4 doubles, 1 homer, 7 RBIs, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts, and 2 stolen bases. The slash line for him is 615, 655, 885, an OPS
Damn.
of 1540.
All right,
Absolutely had a
so
monster week.
So Mookie can knock that shit off because the MVP race is supposed to be Acuna versus Freddie, with Olsen sneaking in possibly. So Mookie needs to knock this shit off and get off the MVP race. Just saying.
I think you need to make a case for a third entrant into that MVP race.
Oh no, he's. I hate to say it, but I've been watching like the last 2-3 weeks of Mookie, and I'm like, ah, damn it, this MVP race is no longer a lock.
No, it's
and
definitely not.
and
And
not
I
because
think,
of not because of Acuna slumping. It's just Mookie has picked it up.
I think there's another person I think re-enters this conversation having a monster year for my guys, and that's Cody Bellinger.
Yeah,
Return
absolutely.
to form this year.
If
Without him, they are not where they are.
Dude, if Belly doesn't get the freaking comeback player of the year award, there's something very, very, very wrong with that. I swear, I don't want to hear Phillies fans say Bryce Harper should be comeback. No, Bryce Harper played all of last year. He had surgery in the offseason. He missed a couple months this year. No, he does not get comeback player of the year. No, 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 no.
I don't think you'll have a rational, logical Philly fan do that.
No, that's probably true. That's probably true.
I don't think and since we have two of them in our little circle here, I don't think
One and a
either
half.
either Jason or Ron would do that. So
1.5. Ron's a little more logical and reasonable than Jason most of the time. All right, looking at the pitchers, we've got my pick was Verlander, 2-0, 11 innings, 16 strikeouts, no earned runs, a .91 whip, 7 hits, 3 walks. Jason's pitcher was Luis Castillo, 2-0, 14 innings, a 0.64 ERA with 15 strikeouts. Joe, did you have a hot pitcher for the week?
no, I mentioned it with the Cubs. Jordan Wicks in his debut had an excellent debut, and I hope that continues. But other than that, no.
And who is the adulting reliever of the week?
So we have this is tough because I think both of these guys are deserving, so I'm going to give it to both. Uh, Pete Fairbanks for Tampa Bay, 2 for 2 in saves, 3 appearances, 3 innings, 2 hits, no runs, no walks, and 7 strikeouts. Absolutely excellent.
7.
Um,
Damn.
so, uh, absolutely excellent week for him. And then Andres Munoz went 3 for 4 in save opportunities, 3 and a third innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, and 8 strikeouts. since he went 3 1/3, the 2 walks, I'm kind of willing to go, okay, that happens.
Yeah.
The 8 strikeouts and getting 3 or 4, your team's in a position for 4 save opportunities in a week. And you're doing your best to capitalize on them. That's great stuff.
It's real hard to get 4 saves in a week, so nothing to be ashamed of with a 3 out of 4 week. That is great pitching right there. All right, then moving on to the hot teams. I almost picked Atlanta, but I decided I will not go homer this week. I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Rays. The Rays last week went 6-1. No, 5-1. I'm sorry, they only played 6 games last week. They lost 1 game to the Yankees and swept the Rockies before they had the Yankees. And then before that, they've just, ever since the Orioles series, they've really turned it back on again. Before that, 2 out of 3 from the Angels. They took 2 out of 3 from the Giants, 2 out of 3 from the Guardians. The only series they have dropped since that Orioles series was, ironically, 2 out of 3 of the Cardinals, because I don't know why. Jason's hot team this past week, the Mariners, 9-1 in the last 10, now leading the West. Again, incredible turnaround. And Joe, who's your hot team?
Real quick with the Mariners, Andres Munoz, who I mentioned, he is the closer for the Mariners.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
mention his team, so that correlates with Jason's hot team there.
Perfectly.
Yeah, my hot team for the week, and hopefully this affects them this week. So far, it has not. Is the Milwaukee Brewers? I mean, how can you not give it to a team that's won 8 straight, is about to win 9 straight? They're up 6-2 now through 7, I think. So about to win 9 straight and prove all of us wrong who think that the Brewers are, not all there talent wise. Proving us wrong every day now the last week and a half.
Those bastards, how dare they? All right, so looking at the week coming up here, Atlanta 3 at the Rockies, Elder versus Gomber tonight, Morton versus Lambert tomorrow, TBD versus Freeland on Wednesday, and currently that game is 4-2 Atlanta. That is in the bottom of the 5th. And then the big series, 4 at the Dodgers for the weekend, Strider versus Urias, Fried versus TBD, Elder versus Miller, Morton versus Kershaw. That is going to be fire. Those are good, Atlanta's got their rotation set that they have their top 4 guys going against the Dodgers. Morton versus Kershaw, man, that's just two old guys that are still pitching like they're young. I love seeing it. And Morton's been hot lately. Kershaw's been pitching well, so we'll see how that goes. That's going to be a big series in determining who's going to take the top record in the NL, possibly the MLB. Then we've got the Cubbies 3 versus the Brewers, Tyone versus Miley, Steele versus Burns, Hendricks versus Woodruff, 4 at the Reds. The doubleheader Friday, neither team announced probables when I checked earlier today. Saturday is going to be Assad versus Ashcraft and Tyone versus Abbott on Sunday. Joe, I do apologize for needing to see Tyone pitch twice this week, especially given how tonight is going. It's a big moving week. This might be the biggest week or one of the biggest weeks for the end of the year for the Cubs.
I've been saying that the last 2 weeks, and it's another big week. This is it. Like, you need to be serious. And just to rag on the Cubs for 1 second here, putting Patrick Wisdom in the lineup, I don't care how good he is supposed to be against lefties, is not serious. This is September now. We can't be putting people in the lineup just because there's a lefty on the mound. I'm sorry. No. Knock it off.
Yeah. And we're not talking about like Julio Franco against lefties, because that was legit. Julio destroyed lefties, even though he was 55 years old or something like that when he last suited up for Atlanta, with the strangest batting stance I've ever seen a major leaguer take. But no, not the time to do that. Phillies this week, 3 versus the Angels. Tonight is Walker versus Giolito, Lorenzen versus Anderson, Sanchez versus Detmers. And then the Phillies go out to the Midwest for the Brewers, Wheeler versus Peralta, Nola versus Hauser, Walker versus Miley. Ron is at the game tonight. I'm going to get it. We'll have his thoughts on how tonight went next week. I don't think Ronnie is too upset right now. Last time I checked, the Phillies were up. Let me double check that right now. Yeah, they won the game 6-4. So I'm sure Ronnie will be happy to give us a glowing report from that game. Again, this is a week that the Phillies need to. They might do you a big favor, Joe, if they take 2 out of 3 from the Brewers on the road. Which, with Wheeler, Nola, and Walker going, you'd think they should. You would think.
Yeah. Yeah, I might owe Jason something by the end of this weekend. This is huge. But this is another week where they just have to take care of business.
Yeah.
And let everything else kind of happen. I mean, if they only win one of these games against Milwaukee, first off, I'll be pissed. But second off, like, you're still going to be okay, right? More than likely. But losing any of these games to the Angels is just unacceptable at this point.
Yeah, the Angels are that's a mess. All right, so let's look at the O's. 3 against the White Sox. Rodriguez versus Kopech. Kremer versus Schultz. Gibson versus Cease. 3 at the D-backs. Irvin versus Davies. Bradich versus Ciccone. And Flaherty versus Galen. That'll be a fun matchup too. So again, I think the O's will be pretty good this week. All right, Joe, anything else you're looking at?
No, man. I'm hoping that the right decisions get made here, and it's time to, sprint to the finish here if you're in contention at all.
I love this time of year. It's just the best time of year. I know it's not Christmas, but this is a great time of year. All right, guys. You can find audio recordings on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you find podcasts. You see us live on YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitter. Merchandise is at redbubble.com. And you can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/dollardogsandbeer. Twitter handles at DDAB_podcast. All 3 of us are still on there for now. I'm at PyroLord314. Jason's at JRicker300. Joe's at Jolton Joe 35. Guys, we're presented by the Dark Era Podcast LLC, sponsored by Whiskey and Old Blade Barbershop in Lidditz. May your dogs always cost $1. May your beer always be cold. Strap down. It's going to be a fun ride to the end.